Thank you for agreeing to talk to Coast Community News, Premier. It's a wonderful day here at Terrigal. You're coming up to the Central Coast regularly. Is that a reflection of your confidence in the region?
It's a reflection of my confidence in the region, but also of the record investment we're making into the region. But also I do feel that we're at a critical time in the region because the government's investing records amounts in local infrastructure. We've been through a very tough time with COVID, and it's important for me to listen on the ground to community leaders and work with Adam Crouch, my colleague and friend, who allows me to know what's going on, because as much as I'd like to know every single thing going on in every part of the state, I can't. So I rely on Adam as the Parliamentary Secretary to really give me a good signal and a good understanding of what's going on. The other critical thing is I think the coast has so much potential moving forward. And we're at a critical time. If we don't get it right now in terms of what we're doing, we risk all those opportunities. You know, my vision for the Central Coast is that it grows according to the wishes of the local area, but also that we create the jobs where young people stay on the coast and thrive, and the best jobs are here. It's definitely got the best lifestyle already. But in terms of supporting young people, supporting good services and infrastructure for all the villages, for an ageing population in some parts of the coast, but also appreciating that the community here has continues to contribute a lot to New South Wales, and I think that will grow into the future. So it's a bit of a selfish motivation as well.
The amalgamation of the two councils voted to amalgamate themselves back in 2015 and happened in 2016. It's been a fraught time for the new council with 15 councillors and relatively politically divided council. Are you now they've been suspended? Are you confident that this period of administration will get the council back on track?
I think it's absolutely the right thing to do for the coast to have one council, because people up here don't distinguish between where they live. They're from the Central Coast and they're coasties. But there's no doubt the decision to put the council into administration we didn't take lightly, and I think it's the right thing to do, because people of the Central Coast deserve to have a council that's there for them, that doesn't ask them to pay more than they have to, that actually gets on the job and works with us to deliver all that infrastructure, and that's really important. At the end of the day, council should reflect the local community, and everybody on council should be there for the right reasons. And I think we do have an opportunity for a positive way forward, and obviously I'll be taking advice from the report which the local government ministry is receiving in the next couple of months. But most importantly, the best advice for us is from the people themselves. We're listening very closely, and even today I've spent the whole day on the coast, and there's been a lot of free advice given on what should happen, and people up here are very respectful but also very determined and understand what's going on and very clear about wanting a council that represents them.
I'm sure you've been given free advice to do with the reality of a rate harmonisation and a special variation in rates in this part of the coast here of up to 40% in rate increases. That decision, of course, hasn't been made yet. Does that sit well with you?
Well, I always worry about cost of living pressures. I think the biggest challenge facing our communities this year as we emerge out of the pandemic is people on fixed incomes obviously always do it tough, but also those with part-time jobs and casual jobs. This is a very tourism-driven area, and a lot of hospitality workers have had hours reduced or had disruptions. So we know cost of living pressures are huge for everybody across the coast. And whether it's making sure we don't burden our citizens on their freedoms, we also don't want to burden them with cost of living. And that's why through Service New South Wales, our government, as a state government, we're giving back billions to the community in rebates, in free registration, in a whole range of things. And local government should be as strict as well, because it's not our money, it's the locals' money. And I think you have to treat it with respect and reduce costs wherever you can. And I think things can be done better, which is why the government took that decision.
Business is booming in some parts of the coast, according to our statistics, a little bit sporadic. Though the entertainment and the hospitality area, like here in Terrigal, seems to have weathered very well. It's employing a lot of people. Do you see some of the measures that your government's put in place as assisting in that process?
I think the biggest measure we did, which has helped businesses across the board, is not locked down at the drop of a hat. Other states. Hello. Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you. I didn't pay for that, by the way. What was I saying? I think the fact that our government's taken a position that we don't define essential workers. Everybody with a job's an essential worker in New South Wales. And we certainly, apart from the one lockdown we had very early on in the pandemic to make sure we're ready to deal with the pandemic, we've kept all of society functioning, we've kept our borders open, we've tried to give people as much freedom as possible to run a business. We've also seen local support the local businesses, which has been fantastic, and a lot of businesses themselves have been really smart. They've been adjusting their business, whether it's offering more takeaway or whatever during this time, but I'd hope that business feels that we've tried to provide as little disruption as possible. And also that we have provided some targeted support. So early on, we did provide some direct grants. As Adam is very excited about the Dine and Discover rebates or the vouchers that are coming along very soon. So we're trying to think of ways in which we're supporting our citizens, but we're also supporting small business in particular, which is the backbone in employing more people, especially part-time staff, and that's really important moving forward.
And on growth, the Greater Sydney Commission's been engaged to come up with a economic and community plan for the Central Coast. Some of our readers are worried that that won't include enough autonomy for the Central Coast. What's the experience of the Greater Sydney Commission in that regard?
The experience has been outstanding because in Greater Sydney, they really gave us our 3 city strategy. So we've got Sydney around the harbour and the CBD. We've got Parramatta, which is our central city in Greater Sydney, and then we've got the new city we're building around the Western Sydney Airport, and that vision has allowed us to plan for the future. So when we're announcing transport projects or roads or schools or hospitals, you know exactly where the growth is happening. And I think on the Central Coast, if you don't plan properly, you'll have growth sporadically all over the place, which is not good for anybody. But you want to be able to say, where are our economic zones, where are our light industrial areas, where are housing. I think it's really important for us to have a good plan that everybody's comfortable with so we can build on that rather than having this ad hoc. When you don't have a plan in place, you don't have a vision, it's always a concern that whether it's council or other bodies do things willy-nilly without a vision. And I think the coast deserves to have a vision, a strategic plan, which is why I was very keen, not only after appointing Adam Crouch as the Parliamentary Secretary for the region, but also making sure that we have that strategic support for the local leaders. And we're actually going outside of government. I mean, the feedback I've had from Adam in terms of the stakeholders we're consulting is fantastic. It's not government or bureaucracy that has the answers, it's really the community. And whether it's people wanting to invest in the region, wanting to live and work in the region, and also making sure that we reduce the chance of any social dislocation or social disadvantage, because we know that parts of the coast do have that level of social disadvantage as well. So it's an opportunity for us to think about the future in a positive way and the opportunities that can be derived here. And if fewer people can move away from the coast to get jobs, well, that's a great outcome in itself.
And lastly, International Women's Day is coming up next week, and a group of inspired women have asked me to ask you this question. I consider you one of the prime leaders in the nation. They said they tend to have a feeling there's a shift in society and politics into a new paradigm shift, they say. How do you see that, and what would you say to women and men in that regard?
Firstly, can I say I'm very honoured and flattered by their comments. I think there is, and if I can make a confession, during the very difficult last 12 months, I made a very conscious decision about how I wanted to lead. And I got a bit of courage because things were life and death. And I kind of felt, firstly, so long as I feel I'm doing the right thing, I don't care what other people think. There's a lot of noise out there. So I got the courage to say, I don't care what commentators say, I don't care what matters to me is doing the right thing by the people. And I also think that when it is life and death, people don't want you to engage in politics, they just want you to engage in good policy. And I hope that is a bit of a shift. I hope that takes shape across the board, and I hope that's the shift they're talking about. But I think also, women in leadership positions is still a bit of a novelty, so I'm hoping to make it less of a novelty moving forward. And hopefully after me, it'll be easier for other women to take on leadership roles throughout society.
Do you think on that, just to expand, do you think that younger women are going to become more encouraged to enter leadership positions after this period and with your leadership example?
Not because of me, but I think, no, but I think I always get, in a good way, inspired by young women today are far more confident than I was their age, and that says to me shifts are happening. And men. I think young people are far more confident in expressing themselves and coming forward and being direct and honest about what they're feeling, what their hopes and aspirations are, certainly more than my generation was, and that is a good thing. And I also love the fact that because COVID has touched everybody in our state, young people are more involved in knowing what their government's doing than ever before, rightly or wrongly, whether they like what we're doing or not, they're more engaged, and I want to see that continue because I think people underestimate the power they have to make a difference. And I always say to people, never underestimate the power you have to make a difference, and I hope young people feel that.
Well, thanks for speaking with Central Coast Newspapers.
It's been an absolute pleasure, David. You couldn't have picked a better day for it.